Brought to you by Short Rests. What could possibly go wrong? Disclaimer. I want to say up front that what is to follow is fairly opinionated and meant to be applied to D&D and similar RPGs. How much it speaks to you will depend on how you see the game. If you view the game as primarily a storytelling device, you will probably have a very different outlook on things than I do, coming from a game as challenge point of view. You've been warned. Hey, it's Todd. Let's talk about don't be a helicopter GM. If you haven't heard of helicopter parents, it refers to those parents who perpetually hover around their children to prevent any sort of harm. It also prevents the child from fully immersing themselves in their environment and learning through trial and error, which might and probably will at some point involve tears. But that's playing, that's learning, that's growing up. The behavior comes from a good place. Who doesn't want to protect their kids from harm? But it has deleterious effects that, I think, are fairly obvious to see from the outside. Helicopter GMing comes from a similar place. We know we're going to challenge our players, and we want them to avail themselves of every available tool at their disposal. So we give these tools to them, even if they didn't ask for or chose not to use them. That's a nice gesture, right? But it falls afoul of the same pitfalls as the parenting version does. By attempting to, air quotes here, fix the problems that we see with our party, we undermine their decisions and steer them in the direction that we want them to go. I most often see this come up with GMs attempting to, air quotes again, correct their party's composition. My party has no healers. How do I fix that? My party has no frontline fighters. How do I fix that? My party is all rogues. How do I fix that? The most common solution that I see to this problem is to embed an NPC into the party that fills out or balances it. You might think that I'd be for this approach since I am a big advocate for hirelings, but you'd be wrong. The difference between those embedded NPCs and hirelings is player choice. The former is an imposition that we're making upon the party. The latter is a function of the decisions that the party makes for themselves. It becomes worse if those NPCs become plot devices because the party is never going to feel complete ownership over bringing them aboard in the first place. If we hire a porter and either due to incomplete or a total lack of vetting, are blindsided by their betrayal, that's on us. We made choices, and we can imagine going back and making different ones. Ask better questions, offer more money, choose a different porter, what have you. If the GM forces the porter on us and then turns them against us, at some level, it doesn't feel like we had a fair shot to avoid that outcome. The original choice to bring the porter wasn't ours, it was the GM's. We could argue all we like about the fiction of the situation, but I believe in something, let's call it meta momentum, that states that if the party believes that the GM wants them to do a thing, if they can figure out what that thing is, they'll tend to do it, regardless of the fiction. The easiest way to avoid tugging on this momentum is to nip it right at the source and hold down our urge to impose our wishes on the party. This leads us back to the question, why are we trying to fix the party in the first place? Character choice and party composition are the most basic, core decisions players will make in a campaign. Why are we undermining that? What is it that we think we're gaining? We do not need to save the party from themselves. A big part of learning is driven from failure. Let them fail. Allow them to fail and learn from it. And guess what? They might just surprise us and succeed. If they do, that's the story that they'll remember. If they fail, they will learn from it and develop new ideas, approaches, and strategies. If our campaigns can't survive those failures, they are not diverse enough to support an unconventional party, that's really a weakness in our design, not in the party itself. The other solution that is common when confronting this issue is to make the game world as pliable to the abilities that the party does have as possible. If you have lots of rogues, add lots of opportunities for stealth. If you have lots of bards and social types, make sure there's social opportunities, etc. But shouldn't we be doing this anyway? If we're looking at our adventures and they are consistently bottlenecking into static encounters with single solutions and single play styles, that's not a feature, that's a bug. That's something to be fixed, regardless of what our player's party might look like. Other things you see and revolve around changing the game world to suit the party and feel a bit better if we think about them, such as reducing all the encounters or littering the ground with healing potions. But how much do you want to honor player choices versus undermining their choices? And again, for what? What is it that we're afraid of? Let's be clear. I do think it's our fear more than the party's. Are we afraid that if they do poorly that they'll stop playing? That can happen anyway, and if we begin hedging our bets to avoid failure, it never stops, and the fun and joy of confronting risk slowly get leached out of the game. Do we think they'll get mad at us? As long as the players have real choices and feel empowered to make them, as long as the world is consistent and dispassionate, they're going to look to their own decisions to see where things went wrong. It's when we impose our decisions upon them, when the world too openly shivers to accommodate our desires, that this relationship erodes. I want to pause here and drop a giant caveat about running published adventures and campaigns. They often need anything from gentle massaging to massive rewriting to be playable in any form. That includes modifying the sort of bottleneck encounters that I mentioned just now, which often occur in abundance in these adventures. I'm not advocating some kind of strictly run things only as written approach. That would be the worst sort of folly. Instead, I'm advocating to use the most open, flexible designs that you can to enable, as much as possible, the full flower of possibility and play. This should always be our design goal. If you are thinking about, or catch yourself in the act of, helicopter GMing, take a moment to think about why you're doing it. Is it for the party, or is it really for you? The helicopter parent's outward goal is the security of their child, but that overprotectiveness isn't driven by the child, but really by their own inner fears or desires. Ultimately, it's for their own gratification. So why do we helicopter GM? What inner fear or desire are we gratifying? It's not a question that I'm really equipped to answer, but it's worth thinking about. I think that there are a lot of emotions that get wrapped up in playing RPGs that cause us to make all sorts of decisions that may or may not be good for the game. We just don't look at them clearly enough or get enough distance from them to see the unfiltered ramifications. The ramifications of this decision are the risks of robbing your players of the opportunity to face the consequences of their choices. That challenge may be difficult, but it often leads to the most valuable moments of play that demand and reward the ingenuity and clever play that we crave and prize. Is gratifying our fears really worth removing this opportunity? I don't think it is. And next time you find yourself at the precipice of helicopter GMing, ask yourself who it's really for, and is it worth it?